Hey guys, so similar to the One Marvelous Scene video trend from last year, some of my personal favorite YouTube channels including The Take, High Top Films, Lessons from the Screenplay, and NerdSync have elected to band together again and initiate a new mass video essay project called OneXcellentScene, a series where people pick one good scene from the X-Men film series and talk about why they like it so much. And I thought I'd join in too. So I've been thinking about what scene from the X-Men films I've wanted to do, and to be honest, there were quite a few good scenes that I thought of doing a video on. There's any number of the epic, ball-bustingly funny moments from Deadpool, or even some of the more elegant moments from the prequel films. But for me personally, I couldn't think of a better one excellent scene to get into than the opening Sentinel fight scene from X-Men Days of Future Past. I am the Hot Take Hipster coming at you straight from the Great Escape YouTube channel. So, if you were to ask me why I chose this movie and this scene, it's honestly because I feel like this film is kind of the unsung hero among X-Men films sometimes. I remember watching the original 3 X-Men movies back when I was a kid, but if I'm being honest, I just hadn't really cared much about these movies ever since. They started doing like prequels and stuff, which I guess other people liked, but I really didn't pay much attention to them. If you ask me, the X-Men franchise was in a pretty lukewarm state up until this point, until I watched this movie. This movie is a perfect welcome back for any X-Men fans that may have grown disinterested in the franchise over the years. Till this day, I honestly still have not watched X-Men First Class, and honestly, this movie is the rare kind of good that makes you feel like you don't need to. This movie is the welcome back that many X-Men fans, including myself, really needed. It's also important because this movie is really weird. It has people with strange abilities and time travel and 1970s politics. It's a movie with really complex themes and characters, and yet it's done so well that it got people reintroduced into the franchise. People watched this movie and were like, hey, the X-Men movies are actually really cool. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. And if you ask me, all of that starts with this opening fight scene of the movie. It doesn't have a slow character scene or an overly long exposition dump. This movie starts off running from the bat and manages to hauntingly set the tension for the rest of the movie. There is nothing like a good fight scene at the beginning of the movie to really set the tone for the rest of the film and to make the audience fear the villain. One other movie that I think does this really well is Avengers Infinity War, where the opening scene of that film generally feels like a Mortal Kombat cutscene. These scenes also get the audience to fear the villain. And as to why we need to fear the villains in this movie, well, that should be pretty obvious. These are some of the most broken and overpowered people on the entire planet. These are mutants, these are the X-Men. They fought wars against Magneto, and yet here they are all cowering away from something. If you really want us to be so afraid for the people who have superpowers to blow stuff up and teleport and stuff, you're gonna have to show us that there's a monster or a threat that can actually challenge them in a fight. Otherwise, I dare say that the rest of the film is pretty pointless. This opening scene makes you realize why it's worth going back in time just to stop the creation of these things before they even happen. That's how dangerously strong that they are. And you can feel that with every single attack that they launch on our main characters. But real quick, I need to talk about the most obviously impressive aspect of this scene, the visuals. It's pretty remarkable how well this movie still holds up so many years later. And all of that is because the special effects in this scene are amazing. This is just superhero movie goodness. The music is amazing and the lighting and effects still hold up perfectly to this day, a whopping 6 years later. I'd honestly be pretty hard pressed to find another superhero movie scene which brings the comic book to life as well as this one does, except in a pretty scary way. This looks like something out of a Mortal Kombat cutscene, but I mean that in a good way. There are even slow motion shots which really help the audience to not get too lost in the chaos, and really pay attention to the most important beats of action in this scene. And I especially love how they do this with Blank's teleportation. I don't even have too many words for it, it just looks so freaking cool the way it's depicted. And you completely understand the action in this scene without any need for clunky exposition. And it's honestly really gruesome.
Jesus Christ.
honestly gets on my nerves sometimes when people say that the ending of Infinity War traumatized them because they had to watch their heroes die by being gently PG-13 dusted out of existence. Kinda like Olaf. No, my friends. This is traumatizing. This is what it should feel like to watch superheroes get murdered. I'm just saying. The score in this scene is also pretty underrated too, and very well underscores the tone of this scene. If I can narrow down the most important thing about the scene, it's not just the fact that our heroes are getting slaughtered. It's the fact that while you watch this, you get a very real sense that you're witnessing not only the death of these characters, but the final moments of, dare I say, an entire species. And the music of this scene by John Ottman even reflects it, being appropriately named Time's Up. The music has this haunting, operatic feel, as if this truly is the end times for the mutant species. If you ask me, this is the true apocalypse for the X-Men. This is their true end. It just adds to the sense of dread and foreboding. And this, ladies and gentlemen, brings us swiftly to the Sentinels. Now, it goes without saying that the Sentinels have a pretty terrifying design, brought horrifically to life through the CGI. They kind of look like a mixture of something out of Terminator and Ultron. The Sentinels are AIs, so they don't technically have emotions, but you'd think they did based on the menacingly inhumane look each of them have on their faces. Except honestly, it might even be more comforting if these beings were shown capable of displaying actual emotions such as anger and empathy. But for me, the scariest thing about the Sentinels isn't even how strong they are, not even the fact that they're just stronger than our heroes. The most terrifying thing about the Sentinels is their ability to adapt, and how they're able to actively negate and undermine the things that make the mutants special. But honestly, none of this may be as important as understanding the true meaning of the Sentinels. From what I do remember from watching these films as a kid, or even the cartoon, is that the conflicts of the X-Men really boil down to two themes: segregation and fear. The writers for these comics have even come out and said as much over time. When the director of this film, Bryan Singer, was asked how the film integrates the themes of the earlier X-Men films, he said, "It establishes that some villain characters may have been right with their fears. It confronts the notions of hope and second chances." So if the spirit of the X-Men for me has always been to fight against fear, the Sentinels in both the comic books and the movies stand as the crushing opposition to these ideals. They are the embodiment and evolution of this fear. On their top 100 comic book villains of all time list, IGN even included the Sentinels in 30th place on their list. As one IGN writer writes, "The X-Men have faced a lot of enemies who fear them simply for being different. But most of these foes have some sort of humanity that can be appealed to or reasoned with. Not so for the Sentinels. Giant, powerful robots, the Sentinels are perhaps the most frightening symbol of hatred against mutants. Machines created to hunt down those who are born different." And that's why the Sentinels work. We've seen robots in movies before. Heck, we've seen robots in superhero movies before. But the Sentinels are not just big, dumb robots. It's the very fact that they don't have any hubris or any human emotions that could weigh them down. These are creations specifically designed to destroy mutants. And I can't stress enough when I say that is exactly what they do. Think about it. By the end of the movie, our heroes don't actually beat the Sentinels straight up. That never actually happens. It's because of this scene that when the characters decide they'd rather spend the next 2 or so hours going back in time so they don't ever have to fight these things in the first place, you don't question it. Instead, the entire movie is all about preventing a terrible conflict with them, which our heroes know for a fact they would absolutely lose in. And all of that energy throughout the entire movie, all of the espionage and the incredibly high stakes, all of it starts right here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my one excellent scene for this video. I hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.
Here come the hero to save the world from destruction. They are X-Men.
Hey guys, just want to give another quick shout out to Lessons from the Screenplay, High Top Films, Nando V Movies, and the rest of these kind folk for starting another mass YouTube project. I love these things and I've always wanted to do one of them, so here you go. Last thing I want to add is that I clearly don't have any kind of unspoken or otherwise monopoly on this scene. If you want to make a video on this scene and you think can do a better job than I did, or if you generally just have your own takes, I would say that I give you my permission, but there's really no permission that needs to be given. That's kind of the whole point of this project, so just go ham. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more content. This has been the Great Escape YouTube channel, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.